Greetings. Welcome to CIBER Focus, your source for international business information. We're coming to you today from the Bethlehem Business Incubator here in Bethlehem, Palestine. My name is Christopher Rice. I'm your host today. Our guest is Fayrouz Khoury. Fayrouz is the manager of the Bethlehem Business Incubator in Palestine. She's previously served as the Deputy General Director at the Bethlehem Chamber of Commerce, as well as on the advisory board for BBI. She has over a decade of experience in business development, consulting small and medium-sized enterprises. She's also researched economic development here in Palestine. Today, Fayrouz will share with us more about the economic climate here in Palestine, as well as what it's like for entrepreneurs. Fayrouz, thank you so much for coming in. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, and thank you for this interview. I mean, as a private sector and as a person who worked with the private sector for 10 years, we've been striving to create a sustainable economic development, more job opportunities, and it's very challenging within a conflict situation. You know, it's really difficult. The political situation is really difficult, so it's very challenging to have sustainable economic development at the same time. So the entrepreneurship environment, I mean, we as Palestinians are lagging behind, unfortunately. There are so many challenges for the entrepreneurship environment. First of all, the education system in Palestine does not support creativity. You know, it's like, it encourages memorizing and then, going to the test, emptying all the information you memorized. So it doesn't encourage creative thinking, and this is a big challenge. So we should start with schools to enhance, let's say, to plant the ideas for entrepreneurship and encourage creativity. Also, the legal environment in Palestine is not really encouraging. For example, the registration process. In Palestine, for the startups, they need like 44 days for the registration. And it's much more than the days needed in other countries in the MENA region, And also the registration fees. They have to pay $1,500, and it's the same amount of money that other big companies pay. There is a lack of incentives from the government, no tax exemptions for entrepreneurs, So this is really challenging, and serious action needs to be taken on the level of all concerned ministries.
Well, you mentioned briefly the political situation here. The challenges are well documented. Can you talk to us about the barriers that young Palestinian workers face in either starting their own businesses or finding jobs in general? What is the landscape like here for work?
A lot of obstacles, actually. I can take like hours talking about the obstacles, but let's say that, as you mentioned, the political situation is a major challenge, first of all. Second, the job opportunities are very limited because, the West Bank is surrounded with a wall, it's separated, we're isolated, so the number of jobs is very limited. So people are using their savings to open new businesses. And all the time when you walk around, you see a business opening and a business closing, So it's very challenging. The buying power is limited in Palestine. In terms of industries, different sectors face different obstacles. But for example, when we talk about the industrial sector, I mean, some industries cannot have the main ingredients they want to use to produce products because of the dual use, you know, for example. It's very challenging for them. There are, for example, bypass roads in order to get the products into Israel, for example, and this means back-to-back, and it means more effort, more time. So when the products reach to the Israeli markets, they are very expensive. They are unable to compete with the products there. So, and when we talk about, for example, let's put, for example, the political obstacles aside. When we talk about the industries, we don't have incentives from the government, for example. The Palestinian labor law is a challenge by itself. It puts a lot of burden on the employers because mainly I mean, it's their responsibility to take care of the employees, and it's a challenge for them. I mean, it's harsh a little bit, the Palestinian labor law, and as I said, it puts a lot of responsibility on the employers. The minimum wage, when we say, for example, the minimum wage for the Palestinians is 1,450 shekels, it's a low salary, but for employers with factories, it's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Workers are satisfied with 1,000 shekels they take. So when you oblige the employer to pay them this minimum wage, so then I've always heard them saying, well, we can close here and open the factory in Turkey or in China. So this is a challenge as well. The taxes. I mean, the taxes in Palestine are very high. No tax exemptions, no tax incentives, for example. Loans. When you talk about if you want to develop your business, or even create your business, open your business, you need loans. And the collateral, oh my God, I mean, it's very challenging. This is to name just a few of the obstacles. Let's say each sector, as I said, has its own obstacles. For example, the tourism sector. I mean, it has its own obstacles because we're not receiving tourists. Whenever we have clashes, we have a conflict arising again, then no tourists are coming. So when you talk about Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus, it depends mainly on tourism. So when there is no tourism for 2 or 3 months, then many families are starving, you know.
Well, Fayrouz, let's take a step back and talk a little bit about your background. You have a master's degree from Bethlehem University in International Cooperation and Development. What inspires you to work in business and economic development, and why youth?
Okay, before the master, my BA is in business administration. And I started my career, with SMEs and startups at the Chamber of Commerce. I worked with them for 10 years. And for me, it's very interesting because I feel that it's part of my belonging to my country. I mean, resistance is not mainly political for me. If we work towards, enhancing the economic environment, then we're creating a change. Yeah. So it was my choice to work with the private sector, to work with small and medium enterprises, give them consultancy services to improve their work and to develop their products, their businesses in a good way. That was my aim, and that's why I'm even working now as an incubator manager, because I really want to work with young people who have the enthusiasm, who have all the positive energy to take their projects a step further and make it see light. So they are the hope. When I was working with business people who are usually middle-aged to old people, they were a bit old school. When you advise them about how to use technology, marketing tools, for them, okay, their work is going on, it's fine. But when you work with young people, the young generation, they're like a sponge. They want to absorb everything in order to improve their work, in order to work better on their projects and ideas.
Fayrouz, do you see any difference between the south and the north of Palestine and the climate for entrepreneurship?
A little bit, yes, because there hasn't been much concentration from let's say the donors and international community on the southern part of Palestine, because the concentration was mainly on the northern part. Even the concentration of diplomatic missions, the ministries, it's all in Ramallah, let's say. So it's basically the economic hub of Palestine. The south has been a little bit ignored, and if you compare the number of projects coming to the south, it's much more less than the number of projects that came, to the north part of Palestine. But I think the equation is a bit changing right now, and I think it's, the south is getting more attention right now.
Well, speaking of impact, the Bethlehem Business Incubator has been around for still a short period of time. What do you anticipate the impact of this incubator having on the region?
Well, despite the short time of the presence of the BBI, I think the BBI is doing a great job. We're attracting a big number of audience and participants for the community workshops, which is very challenging, because when I used to work in the Chamber of Commerce, you used to invite 1,200 people and only 10 to 15 people will show up. And it's the case for all the institutions in Bethlehem, the south area of Palestine. But in this case, it's an indicator that our topics for the community workshops are interesting. People are interested to come and participate. In terms of our role with the startups, we're getting a lot of exposure. We're publishing all the sessions we're having on we're concentrating on the social media, and Facebook page. So many people are trying to contact us for more information. How to apply to be incubated in our incubator. And even the press is focusing on our role in the south. So many radio stations have been calling me for interviews, for press releases, and it's been really interesting how interested they are with the role of the BBI.
Yeah. Would you say that the climate for entrepreneurship here in Bethlehem has changed over the last year?
It would be an exaggeration to say so, but I think we're doing, we're trying as BBI to do this change, and the component with Bethlehem University and the ambassador program to reach out to the community and try to enhance the entrepreneurship and spreading this concept by public speeches in halls, in universities, in schools. It's doing something. So when we reach out, let's say every time to 50 students and tell them about entrepreneurship, encourage them to come forward with their ideas, and I think we're doing some change.
Yeah. Well, Bethlehem University here in town has been heavily emphasizing entrepreneurship lately. Can you talk about why entrepreneurship is critical in this region for business students and also for those without business backgrounds?
People have been practicing entrepreneurship, just like that, without real principles, without an, education system. So the curricula that Bethlehem University is building currently for entrepreneurship, it's a good step to organize, let's say, how to emphasize the concept of entrepreneurship and to create real entrepreneurs in the area of Bethlehem.
Well, To create real entrepreneurship here in Bethlehem, what strategies do you think would work best to do this?
Actually, it's a big responsibility, not only on one institution. It needs to be done on a national level. The ministries have to coordinate and cooperate efforts in order to do, to plan for a structure that cares about entrepreneurship and emphasizes entrepreneurship. It's not, we can say that it's the responsibility of only one institution. So it needs cooperating.
Nationwide.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned solutions to some of these problems are a nationwide approach to entrepreneurship, and also entrepreneurship as a means of economic resistance. I think that is a very important point. Can you talk a little bit more about how young workers can approach this means of economic resistance?
I think I can give the example of the BBI. What we're doing here with the young generation, the community workshops, planting, in emphasizing the role of entrepreneurship and all the projects coming from the donors towards the, enhancing the economic situation in, let's say, in Bethlehem. This is by itself a good way for the young people to resist, to even survive and to be independent in terms of, financially independent. They can lessen the burden on their families. Yeah. When, usually we say conflicts, no matter what type of conflicts they are usually, they go with poverty. When you have a better economic status, better economic situation, then it can lessen other conflict, tensions.
Yes. Well, what sort of long-term effects do you expect BBI to have on the region here? What would you expect to see in 5 or 10 years down the line?
I would like to see a number of startups, a number of businesses opening. I would like to see new jobs opening. When you have like startup opening job opportunities for 3 or 4 people, it will be amazing.
Fayrouz, thank you so much for taking the time for the interview.
You're most welcome.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
That's all for this edition of CIBER Focus. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any comments or suggestions for future topics, please let us know at CIBER, that's CIBER, cyber @indiana.edu.